Marvel, we tell stories about heroes that are larger than life, who represent their communities, use their special powers for good, and inspire us all to triumph over adversity. But as we know, not all heroes wear capes, because it's what's on the inside that truly makes someone a hero. Best known as a founding member of the Black Eyed Peas, Jimmy Taboo Gomez is a rapper, songwriter, and actor that uses his own heroic story to inspire those around him. And by around him, I mean the 76 million people that have bought his albums, never mind the millions that have seen him perform around the world. I'm hanging with Taboo today to talk about music, culture, and what it means to be a hero. I'm Joe Quesada. I tell stories for a living. Welcome to Marvel Storyboards.
What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
Good to see you. I have a tradition that started when Black Eyed Peas performed at Madison Square Garden. We were staying around the corner, and there was a store that caught my eye. It's a really cool antique spot, and I'd like to take you to it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right.
Cool. I'm very fascinated about the ancestry of my people. I'm Hopi and Shoshone.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of heroes and a lot of stories that need to be told.
School me.
What's up, Nelson?
What's up, brother?
Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you, man.
Yes, sir. If we're in the business of storytelling, this is what inspires me. My tattoo is inspired by some of the pottery.
If someone wears something that is inspired by Native American culture, because we're this huge melting pot, at what point do you draw a line and say, well, you know, it's okay for something to be inspired by Native American culture, and then, okay, no, that's not okay?
I lead with love.
Right.
I would be a hypocrite if I had some form of negative frequency, because I'm the guy that said, where's the love? We can celebrate cultures. I'm married to a Filipino woman, and I love Filipino culture. Well, I am as African American. Apple Diap is Filipino. I'm Native and Mexican.
Yeah.
So we're a diverse group that celebrates each other's cultures, and we appreciate our culture. Instead of pointing fingers at you, I'd rather educate you and inform you, and do it in a way where we can have a conversation about it and be communicators as opposed to agitators.
I agree, 100%. Did you read comic books as a kid?
You know what, honestly, I didn't read comic books as a kid. I collected toys. I'm a toy guy. And that's what led me to Comic-Con. It's about pop culture, and it was about, you know, storytelling, and it was about your imagination. And I fell in love with Comic-Con because of that. So as I got older, I started really going back and really getting into comics. The one comic that I always asked for was Red Wolf. Always.
How did you become familiar with Red Wolf?
I started falling in love with that character because I said to myself, why don't I celebrate and really get into a hero that speaks to me on a personal level? I love Spider-Man, I love Iron Man, I love those guys. But when you have culture represented and you're able to see heroes in the Marvel universe that could potentially inspire you to become a hero in your own reality, that's what I gravitate to. He can continue to be under the radar, but eventually have a moment in the sun. And that's how we are. Black Eyed Peas was underground.
Yeah.
But eventually we had our moment in our sun. Underserved communities have to have that spotlight too.
So speaking of Red Wolf, speaking of comics, what's your superhero origin story?
So at 5 years old, my grandmother was the person that would sit in a chair just like this, and she would say, from Los Angeles, California, give it up for Jimmy Gomez. And I would be dancing in the living room, doing whatever I can to entertain her. The joy and the happiness that lit up in her face let me know that this was something that I was good at. This was my purpose. So she inspired me to become the person that I am today.
Your grandmother seems to play such a huge role.
She does, man. She was my warrior spirit. She was the light of my life. You know, and I when I talk about her, I get choked up because she's my hero. Beyond any superhero, my grandmother was my hero. She didn't wear a cape, she had a cane. But when she stepped on the dance floor, she would throw her cane and she would start dancing. You see how I light up when I talk about her, man.
So where does Taboo come from?
Taboo represented the lifestyle that I was living as a teenager. I was doing hip hop music, and in my neighborhood, it was either you were a gang member or you were a rebel, and I was doing hip hop. I was a breakdancer. So it was a taboo to be immersed in hip hop culture in my neighborhood. So I just said, wow, if I'm living a taboo lifestyle, I am taboo. 8 years old until 16 or 17, that was when I met will.i.am and Apple. And in 1995, we became Black Eyed Peas. So straight out of high school, I started my career. And then during the day, I worked at Disneyland, picking up horse manure. During the electrical parade, it taught me a lot about appreciating and never taking it for granted. How you doing? So how did you get into comic books?
I read them as a kid growing up. My father actually introduced me to comic books. I was inspired by the stuff that Stan Lee would write, but never dreaming that someday I'd have that same job,
That's
at
awesome.
Marvel. First time I came to New York, was that with the Peas?
Yeah. The thing that really drove us as dancers, as b-boys, as freestyle dancers, was East Coast music, whether it was Gangstar, KRS-One, Boogie Down Productions, A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul. I mean, Public Enemy, the list goes on and on of how much inspiration came from the East Coast.
Diner.
Yes, sir,
Diner
we're here.
food. We're here. Everything that I've done in my artistic career has mostly been done through collaboration. I love the idea of collaboration. And for millions upon millions of people all over the world, the Black Eyed Peas have been the soundtrack of their life. And I think that's because combinations breed success. Like the Avengers, right? The Avengers, they come together for this great moment, this great heroic moment. Nick Fury puts them together. When you guys come together to collaborate, what's that like?
So we have two rooms going during our process.
Right.
So we have the Willy Wonka room, which is the will.i.am room where he's producing and coming up with stuff, and then me and Apple have the Star Wars room. So that inspires us.
Right.
You know, that's the room where the toys activate the inspiration. Those are our two workshops. Me and Apple write verses and we'll come up with a hook, and then we'll come into our room and be like, oh, let me add something to that. And we come up with something together. We dreamed together and we believed in each other and motivated each other. How does it work for you guys, like when you guys are creating comics?
It's a very collaborative process. Everybody's sort of creating in their own studio, but all with one goal in mind. When the writer writes the story, the artist is then interpreting that story. Look at this. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
So, talking about story, every great story, your protagonist, your hero, somewhere just before the third act, finds himself in a place where their back is against the wall, and they've got nowhere to go. And they have a choice to make. That choice is either to hang it up, give it up, or to somehow or other become the person they are to be. Can you think of a moment like that for you?
My battle against cancer, the ultimate villain. Because it was no longer something that was in my control.
Yeah.
38 with testicular cancer, stage 2. It was spreading at a rapid rate. And there was moments where I wanted to give up because I was like, man, this chemo's too intense for me.
Yeah.
I can't make it. 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. And it was like torture, war, and a nightmare all in one. That's what I felt. My wife was my rock. Started going into like warrior spirit mode. And that's when I started seeing the visions of my grandmother saying, keep your hands in the soil, Mother Earth. And that's what led me to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And being an advocate for indigenous people and being an advocate for the fight against cancer. Because I'm like, man, this is a blessing that I'm alive. So why not use it to be able to help others? And that's why I went to Standing Rock. For those folks that don't know what Standing Rock is, Standing Rock was a situation where the DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline, was being built on sacred ground, which is the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe's reservation. I felt like I needed to be there. And so this helped me during my healing process as a cancer survivor, and it just like illuminated my life. It taught me a lot about solidarity and standing with people for a cause.
All of us at Marvel know about your great love for the character Red Wolf. So for those who aren't familiar with Red Wolf and aren't familiar with your love of the character, tell me a little bit about it.
There's so many stories that could be told about diversity within the Marvel universe. Then it's a win-win for all of us. You need that. You need to have a reflection of who you are. And that's why I always talk about Red Wolf. 'Cause I love that character so much, and I love what Red Wolf means to us. When we look in the mirror, we see ourselves in Red Wolf.
At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, right? When you hang up the Black Eyed Peas cape, right? What keeps you grounded?
My wife and my kids.
Yeah.
My family. Knowing that I don't want to just leave a catalog of music. I want to leave a legacy that my kids can really appreciate. You can say my dad was a humanitarian. My dad used his platform to help others. Like, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's like being of service.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
It's been
Appreciate it.
amazing and
Thank
educational and inspirational.
Thank you. Red Wolf.
Red Wolf.
Awesome.
The Black Eyed Peas once asked, "Where is the love?" And spending the day with Taboo makes that answer obvious. It's in everything he does. Taboo also reminded me that creativity not only comes from who you are, but where you've been and who you love.